All right, I think we can start now. Good evening, everyone. I welcome you all to the Student Research Seminar Series 2021. My name is Devyani and I will be the host for the evening. This event aims to showcase this research done at IISc publicly. This is a monthly event, and today we have a very interesting talk lined up for you by one of our PhD students. Uh, Before we begin, for the records, I would like to know how many of you are an IEEE member. I would request you all the IEEE members present here to raise the hand so that we can get a count. Okay, thank you. You may unraise yourself now. Okay, so without further ado, let's begin our first talk. A talk on Cornet 2.0. Co-simulation middleware for robot networks by Sri Krishna Acharya. Sri Krishna is a PhD scholar at Robert Bosch Center for Cyber Physical Systems, co-advised by Professor Bharadwaj Amrutur and Professor Yogesh Iman. Currently a part Currently part of Autonomous Machine Lab, where he explore wide range of problems, include but not limited to cooperative robotics, learning-based robots, and network-enabled multi-robot system. His primary research focus is to build co-simulation framework that captures the complete cyber-physical system aspects of the multi-robot system. He did his master's in VLSI and embedded system at IIIT Delhi. During his course, he worked as research intern at Advanced Systems and Technology AST Group, STM Microelectronics, where he worked on various research problems in the area of 3D computer graphics and image processing. The primary focus of the team is to work on open source tools and research papers and integrating them into their existing tools. His course project was to minimize usage of censored IMU for rendering realistic 3D avatar using Physical Simulation 1, where he was advised by Dr. B.P. Sujit. Sri Krishna has a bachelor's degree in Electronics and Communication Engineering from GPREC Kurnool. Welcome, Sri Krishna, and the floor is all yours.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. And yes, I am Sri Krishna Acharya, and in this session, I would like to present my work on a co-simulation framework. And yeah, uh, I think can we start the session now? Okay, I am.
Yeah, share your screen, please. Yeah, you go ahead.
That's it. Is the screen visible?
Yes, it's visible. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. In this work, we present a networked co-simulation framework for a multi-robot applications. And yeah, in this presentation, we will introduce the co-simulation framework and its detailed design principles, followed by the discussion on the capabilities of the framework. And we will conclude with the results and following up with the questions. And multi-agent systems plays an important role in modern robotics. Development and real-world deployment of multi-robot systems poses several challenging problems like task allocation, path planning, coordination, localization, etc. In all of these problems, coordination among the agents via communication channel forms an essential backbone. Perception action loop of a multi-agent systems are closed over a communication channel. This is the primary motivation for the work. The figure illustrated here provides an overview of entities within the Cornet framework. There is a data plane where agents can communicate over any middleware framework like ROS, ROS2, DDS, etc., or a simple sockets is also fine. And there is in the other area where we have a control plane which takes care of exchange of messages across the simulation instances. The there are three major components of the framework. One is the physics simulation, and then there is a network simulation and a coordinate middleware for the integration of it. We use Gazebo to realize the robot simulations physics aspects, and Mininet Wi-Fi with ContainerNet support is used to realize the networking aspects, and the coordinate middleware allows seamless integration of these two simulation tools. We will dwell into each component in detail in subsequent slides. Many modern platforms like Unreal Engine, AirSim, Unity boast astounding levels of realistic representations of physics and the dynamics of the robots and its interaction with the environment. But the choice of the Gazebo is primarily driven by the extensive community support. Gazebo provides a choice of integrating multiple physics engines, high-quality graphics rendering, and other sensor model plugins to interact with the robot and its environment. Whereas ROS provides a set of open source tools and APIs assisting the developers to build prototype of robotic applications in rapidly. So yeah, and the network simulator, the networking stack especially uses Mininet Wi-Fi with ContainerNet support extension, which allows Docker containers as the Mininet hosts and Wi-Fi stations, which enables exciting network and cloud testbed features. To emulate a wireless medium, it uses the WMedium-D library, which is a very popular library in terms of network realization. The primary function of the proposed framework is to interconnect physics simulator with the network simulator coherently. The primary blocks of the middleware frameworks are to provide an end-to-end data path to the nodes and mobility and time synchronization across the framework. As illustrated in the figure, the primary function of the data plane is to create end-to-end data path using the virtual network between the robot nodes simulated in the physics simulation. For instance, every robot in Gazebo is a corresponding network host is created, and Mininet Wi-Fi places this network host process in a different Linux namespace, connecting them through a virtual Ethernet pairs. The application node can bind sockets to these virtual interfaces and communicate over them. The control plane captures the state and time information of the robots in a synchronized manner, ensuring the correctness of the simulation. As shown in the figure, the robot entity in the physics simulator releases the packet. The message is time-stamped in the coordinate middleware, and it is passed on to the network layer. The network simulator simulates the network artifacts. That is, in this case, we have added an induced delay of delta t, and then release the packet. And the coordinate middleware timestamp the packet for the sanity checking. If T1 plus delta t is greater than T2, ensuring the simulation functioning correctly, the packet is released back to the physics simulator after the overall lapse time. That is delta t minus T2 minus T1. That is the overall lapse time that has to be ensured. If the packet has missed the deadline, that particular packet is been discarded as it missed the deadline basically. So this is how we are ensuring the time synchronization of the entire simulation framework. In summary, the Coordinate 2.0 middleware allows a broad spectrum of network-enabled experiments like traffic shaping, ad hoc mesh configurations. It allows you to replay the real network conditions as well, and further it allows you to set up different network condition profiles as well. These are the type of experiments that we can enable of both network and robot simulation in conjunction basically. So this is the overall discussion about the framework. Now we'll try to evaluate the overall framework, and we will see how this framework functions. The first and very important thing is to understand the benefits of the time synchronization. In order to understand the time synchronization, we have conducted two experiments, with and without the time synchronization. In both of these, we simulated a network delay of 1 second, and we measured the Gazebo time for the same duration. During these experiments, we have tried to plot the latency measurements in both Gazebo and the network simulations, both in synchronized and unsynchronized cases. As you can see in the left figure, it does not indicate a good correlation between the time measured between gazebo and the minute. However, in the synchronized case, the scatter plot shows a perfect alignment between the time measured as one move from left to right. So, as you can see, synchronization plays a vital role, especially with ever-changing real-time factor in the physics simulations. To ensure the correctness of the simulation, it is very important to provide such stringent guarantees of time synchronization. In the next experiment, we will try to test this framework scalability by simulating multiple robots with a basic network configuration of a single access point, and all the robots are connected to a ROS master running in the access point. The workstation used for the following experiment has Intel i7 9th generation processor and 32 GB of RAM. So in the first figure, we try to, in the figure in the right, we try to illustrate the average resource consumption of each component of the simulation framework. As expected, the GZ client here, which is the Gazebo's user interface that provides visualization, rendering, and of the simulation environment, consumes the most of the CPU resources. In contrast with the coordinate middleware, which consumes a fraction of CPU resources. So for a very large simulations, Gazebo allows to configure to disable the GUI and we can only use GZ server to realize the physics engine capabilities for the robots. And we can scale the experiment to further extent. And in the figure in the left, we try to show both CPU usage and memory usage as a function of number of robots. Our framework does not impose any restrictions on the number of robots, type of robot, and the network topology. These results indicate that we can scale simulation to 20 robots even on the modest compute resources. Now we will try to understand different case studies. In this first case study, what we try to simulate is we move a three-wheel robot in an empty world. In first case, in the figure in the left shows that the particular robot is connected to a single access point, and the RSSI values are measured for various propagation models. In the second case, we repeated the same experiment connected to multiple access points to demonstrate the handover use case. The first figure in the left shows the RSSI value measured in the network simulator changes with respect to the position of the mobile robot. As you can see here, the position of the access point is around 0,10, and you can see the RSSI value measurement is highest at that particular location. So basically, as the robot moves across, when it moves closer to the access point, the received signal strength is higher. As it moves away from the access point, and the received signal strength is drastically decreasing. And we have demonstrated for the various propagation models that have been allowed by the network simulator. In the first case, in the blue line, it shows a disk type of on-off kind of scenario where you will have this is basically to demonstrate set of on-off kind of propagation model where either you will have a connection or you will have no connection. In that case, you can see there is basically you will have consistently throughout the connection range, you will have same RSSI value measured, and once you are out of range, you will have no measurement. Similarly, we will have different type of log normal and as well as log distance based propagation models. And you can see for various system loss parameters, you can see the range of the this particular axis point is kind of decreased here. For example, in the case where system loss is 2, you will have you can get the axis point to the extent of 60 meters. But for the system loss parameter 4, you can see in the green line, the graph, you can only get the signal quality till the robot is around 60 meters. Similarly, for the different propagation models like log normal, we actually showed with change in the position of the axis point, where the axis point is now at 10,10. As you can see, when the axis point is changed to 10,10, the overall range of the axis point also increased a little bit. So basically, the positions of the axis points and the positions of the robot dictate how long we can be connected to the network. And this particular kind of measurement will be very helpful to understand the relationship between the network node and the physics simulation nodes that are co-simulated in this particular scenario. And you can see as when robot is not associated with any axis point, the resulted measurement of RSSI value is 0. So that is the first use case that we try to demonstrate. In the second use case, in the second diagram, where we try to have two access points that are being situated here. And as you can see in this experiment, the first access point is at a position 100, 100, and the second access point is around 200, 100. As you can see here, as the robot moves along from 0, 100 to 100, 100, as you can see here, we can see the similar pattern where as the robot moves towards the axis point, the received signal strength is increasing, and then immediately when it moves away from the axis point, the received signal strength is decreasing. And then around the handover scenario, you will have no signal. That indicates that these are the kind of areas where the control systems might be behaving not appropriately. These kind of co-simulations will enable these kind of experiments where in general, when you don't co-simulate with the network, you don't consider these kind of artifacts into your consideration for your developing your algorithms. So when you bring these kind of scenarios into the picture, you can actually simulate much richer kind of simulation for both robotic as well as network related aspects. So that is the kind of scenario that we try to demonstrate in this particular use case. These kind of artifacts will be very helpful to model the algorithms for the control algorithms to behave correctly in terms of network impairments, basically. So that is what we try to illustrate in this particular set of experiments. In the second use case, we tried to control an inverted pendulum with a PID controller from a remote mobile station. As you can see in the picture here, there is a remote mobile station that is been running here, and there is a static inverted pendulum that is being connected over here. The topology is such that inverted pendulum robot is connected to the access point, and we try to control it over a lossy network. As you can see in the figure, the controller position error versus the packet loss in the simulated channels. You can see that the time to converge increases with the packet losses. See in the figure 1 here, with 1% packet loss, the time to converge is lesser. As the packet loss is increasing, the time to converge is also increasing. This use case particularly demonstrates the stochastic nature of the medium-induced artifacts like packet losses, jitter, and time-varying delays on developing the network control algorithms. For both the case studies 1 and 2, the control algorithms are developed using ROS, and the source code is also available in the GitHub that I will be sharing in the end. And we will try to demonstrate few videos on the overall operation of this particular co-simulation framework. In the first scenario, we try to simulate a network assisted drone port where the drone port has an upward facing camera that is being used to locate the drone in the air and try to send commands to the drone to land it on top of the drone. Basically, we don't use any onboard sensors on the drone, and we try to land on the drone pad. In the in picture here, you can see the drone from the drone port camera angle. As you can see here, we are sending the commands to make the drone centered and then trying to send the commands to the drone to make it land. This is the first scenario that we try to do a network assisted drone landing. For this, we have used this kind of scenario to demonstrate this particular use case. And we also demonstrate this use case with two drones. In this use case, we try to have this kind of communication between the drones such a way that both the drones are used for a surveillance kind of application. As you can see here, the first drone is been doing a surveillance mission that is been allotted to it. And whenever the drone finds some sort of difficulty, or for example, in the case like the drone battery is critically low, in that use cases, we kind of can schedule another drone to go to the same drone location and we can restart the machine. So that is what we demonstrate in this particular demo video. As you can see here, the drone here is moving around the this particular area. It has been surveilling, doing a surveillance mission that has been allotted to the drone. As you can see here, we have created a situation where the battery of the first drone is low, and immediately we try to send a command to the second drone to start the mission and replace that particular drone. So the second drone takes off and goes and replaces the first drone, and it continues the mission. So the first drone comes back and resumes its charging on the drone pad here. So here we are used the precision landing algorithm that has been onboard sensors, using onboard sensors itself. But all in all, the idea is to have the communication between the drones. So here, the second drone will continue the surveillance mission as what the first drone was particularly doing. So when the second drone has some issues, again the first drone will take over and take place the second drone. So basically, we can do some sort of unmanned aerial missions with drones communicating with each other, and we don't need to do anything on top of it. So these kind of autonomous missions can be managed using both these kind of co-simulation framework that we are developing right now. So this is the demonstration of this particular use case. And in the next use case, we try to demonstrate a ground robot scenario where we try to pass the information over the network about the other robot, and this is used for the collision avoidance, proactive collision avoidance kind of scenarios. In this experiment, in the first experiment, as you can see here, the network, we are not passing the information about the network, and there is a possible potential collision situation here because the onboard sensors on the robots cannot recognize or cannot detect the other drone over the corner here. Now we repeat this experiment by passing the information over the network. As you can see here, the information about the other network is passed. That is the reason the path is dynamically updated for each of the robots. As you can see here, both the robots' path is dynamically updated and they avoid each other, and the mission is successful here. We try to demonstrate this experiment with real robots as well, and this is what the overall we actually demonstrated this particular experiment with 2 Volta robots here. As you can see here, because this robot is actually not in the lidar range of this particular robot, even then the robot scheduled the path to avoid this robot, and it went the other way around and it continued its trajectory. The mission was to come around here. So the other robot, even though this is the shortest path, it took the longer path because this path is not allowed. Over the network, it knows this particular robot is available here. So now, without passing the information over the network, the situation will be bad because this particular robot thinks that this is the shortest path and it will try to come around here. And you can see in this video how the robot behaves when this kind of situation arises. This robot tries to take this path, and as soon as this particular lidar recognizes that there is an obstacle, dynamic obstacle, which is the other robot is in this vicinity, immediately this has to replan and has to go back and start this mission again. This will result in longer task execution time, as well as it will require a lot of replanning for the robot to go into. It has to take very longer paths than actually intended to. This is the kind of demonstration that we try to do. Whatever we try to do over the real simulation, co-simulation framework that we developed, we also try to realize them using the real robots as well. So that was the kind of update that we have here in this particular video. And coming to the next scenario, this is a use case of teleoperation with 4 robots. As you can see here, we are trying to control each robot in this particular scenario, where, as you can see here, there are, for every robot, we have started to monitor using a wavemon, which represents the signal quality of this particular access point here. As you can see here, there is a teleoperation node which is connected to the access point, and we are trying to control all the 4 robots using that in this particular use case. So in this one, we are selecting the robot. Here we are connecting to the robot 0. As you can see here, when we are trying to move the robot 0, the link quality will be continuously changing as we move the robot, as you can see in this window here. in this window, you can start seeing that once we started moving, the link quality and the signal level will keep on changing. You can see here the link quality is drastically dropping as we are moving away from the access point. So we are remotely operating this particular robot, and as you can see here, the signal quality is consistently dropping as the robot moves in the simulation environment. You can see this link quality is dropping here. It's been now 47%, and the signal quality is around minus 97 dB, which is very bad. And after that, it will actually stop now because it is not able to render. I mean, the signal quality is bad, so you can't teleoperate anymore after this particular scenario. So once the link quality is bad, you lost the connection to the robot. After that, the robot will stop. So once the robot is not reachable, that particular robot will stop, and it's not able to, I mean, like you cannot operate it. In real world scenarios, this is very important to understand what kind of ranges that you have and what kind of signal qualities you have. And this is very helpful for network planning of the warehouse environments as well. So when we try to connect to the robot 0 again, it is not reachable anymore. So you have to be aware of this kind of potential hotspots when you actually plan a network. Similarly, now we try to control robot 1. As you can see here, when we try to move the robot 1 here, the signal quality of the particular robot 1 is consistently changing here. So you can see here, as the robot is moving away from the access point, again in this use case as well, the signal quality is dropping, and after some point of time, you will not be able to control the particular robot. The signal quality is less than 34%. You will not be able to control the robot anymore around the same area. So this robot is also going to the same area, and then the robot 1 is also not reachable. So basically, we repeated this experiment for other 2 robots as well. But the overall gist is to demonstrate this kind of end-to-end integration of the overall middleware that we have in the CORNET framework using Gazebo and the ContainerNet. As you can see here, in Gazebo we have instantiated the robots, and the corresponding world environment is using the warehouse use case here. And the teleoperation nodes are connected to the access point via Ethernet link, and all these robots are connected via Wi-Fi and connected to the same access point here. So as long as the robots are in the access point range, the teleoperation node can control the robots and send commands. So this is to demonstrate the end-to-end interaction between the 2 simulation environments for a multi-robot scenario. And this particular demonstration use case is also provided in the YouTube. I can provide you the link in the end. So that's the core idea here. So, and all in all, the overall idea is basically, we initially started with the CORNET 1 framework, which was published in CommsNet 2020. There we have used NS3 as the communication tool, or network stack. And in CORNET 2.0, we have shifted to Mininet Wi-Fi with ContainerNet support, and that is recently accepted in CommsNet conference. And we have also extended it with the containers, and the major differences between CORNET 1 and CORNET 2 are basically they are not tightly coupled with the robot applications, and the choice of physics simulators and network simulators are independent. You can use any network simulator. Right now, we are developing CORNET, the 3rd version, where we have, instead of Gazebo, we will also have AirSim or any other network or physics simulators like basically like Carla, AirSim, or something like that. And at the same time, we are also bringing back NS3 to provide LTE kind of communication stack. And we are also bringing in the Mininet Wi-Fi simulation framework, because that provides us very good container support that is also allowed. Basically, we extend the ContainerNet based virtualization for the robot nodes for the scalability purpose. At the same time, we are also providing the network simulations from the NS3 like LTE and 5G kind of scenarios. And We also submitted a network-aware collision avoidance kind of algorithm that we have developed using this particular framework, and we have submitted for ICRA. So that is also under review. So this is, and the source code for the following work is provided here. So yeah, that is all from my side. And any questions?
Thank you, Shri Krishna, for the talk. We are open for questions. Yeah,
So,
we have one question. Yeah, go ahead and answer.
yeah. So what kind of limitations are you talking about? So are you talking about network models, or what models that you are talking about? So basically the core idea is to, yeah, there is no limitation from the middleware point of view. So we are actually trying to provide a bridge between two simulation frameworks, basically any physics simulations. So for example, in the CoreNet, you can actually, we can actually have models like drones and ground robots, or any other kind of multi-wheeled robots as well. And also, like, for example, human kind of, arm or anything. It could be any model as of such. So there is no limitation from the middleware point of view. Middleware is just to provide seamless integration between the network simulator and the physics simulator. In the network simulator, for example, in NS3, you can use any model, for example, propagation models or anything you can actually. So from the CoreNet point of view, we are not putting any limitation as of such. Okay.
Hi, Shri Krishna. It was very good talk. I just have one small question. That have you tried about applications on medical technology as well? In network connected surgical robots.
Yes. This is also one other area that we've been like asked around, but we did not try it out because this is a simulation environment, and we have tried the other way, not into the medical, but we have actually tried to do teleoperation of the real world vehicle. Like, for example, we have a Transvahan vehicles running in the ISC campus, right? So we have taken one of the Transvahan vehicle and we have modified it to remotely being driven. So basically, we have modified it to drive by wire, and over the network, we were able to drive that particular robot, or not robot. Basically, here we have a physical car. We tried over Wi-Fi, and we also tried over LTE. So over the network, we are able to control that particular vehicle and able to drive it inside IAC within this particular like velocity limits. Right now, it is not going at a very high speed, but at a reasonable speed, which is around 15 to 20 kilometers per hour range. We are able to drive that particular vehicle inside the campus environment. That we are able to try it out, but not the medical ones. Medical ones we are not able to. We did not have a chance to interact with anyone as of now. But this is also another area that we will be interested to explore.
Okay.
Just in continuation of what you were mentioning, so does the Transvahan were able to detect the traffic incoming, or were you tried on plain roads?
No. We have, so basically it's a remote operator. Basically there is a camera in front of it, and that camera video has been like we have able to send these videos over the LTE, and the remote driver will see the video and be able to drive it. That is what the teleoperation that we are talking about. So basically,
was there any lag? So video.
Yes. There is a lag. It depends on the kind of network availability that we have, but for the low speeds, that seems to be fine. And we also have little bit of onboard compute where we have certain safety protocols that we are still developing, that if there is some kind of obstacle, the vehicle, if you don't get any response from the remote driver over the network, it will stop. I mean, like, if you don't know what to do, it will stop. Basically, that's a kind of safety mechanism that we have right now, but we are still developing on top of it. That's ongoing work right now.
Okay.
So we are trying to use the Transvahan to remotely drive these things inside the campus for now. So that is been under work. So you can come to RBC CPS. That has been, we are working on that right now. You can actually have a see. You can see that particular vehicle that we have actually remodeled or basically reworked to make it remotely drivable. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Shri Krishna, for the talk. Can you please stop sharing? I have to share my screen.
Sure, no problem. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Shri Krishna, for the talk. And on behalf of IEEE ISC, COMSOC, and SPS chapter, please accept this memento. And we wish you all the best for your future endeavors.